course I decided to do a Mario soccer video in the middle of February. You know what? Screw this, I'm going inside. Throughout the years, Mario has appeared in what seems to be every sport imaginable at this point. Tennis, golf, basketball, and baseball, just to name a few. But out of all those different entries, there is still one sports title that reigns supreme. One series of games that many fans agree to be the best Mario sports series. This is Mario Strikers. But why is that? What makes the gameplay of Mario Strikers so fun and addicting to go back to even today? And why is the game just in general so memorable? Well, my friends, get comfortable because it's a long one. But by the end of this video, you'll definitely see what the hype is all about. It's time to throw your Koopa shells and charge up those Mega Strikes, because today I'd like to take an analytical look back at the Mario Strikers games in order to find out what made Mario Strikers so amazing. Okay, so now as you can see, I've shifted the time of year to summer because now I'm back outside standing in front of a completely normal and real field. But anyways, before we can look at the games, I think we should take a trip down memory lane back to the year 2005. This was the first time that Mario Strikers was revealed, which was June of this year at E3. This series was made by the developer Next Level Games, a Canadian video game developer that was owned by Nintendo. The game's director, Mike Englehart, said in an interview that Mario Strikers was originally intended to be a more realistic Mario sports game, but eventually they opted for a more over-the-top style after many meetings with Nintendo. Next Level Games actually only developed one game before this, which was a more realistic hockey game called NHL Hitz Pro. And Hitz was spelled with a Z because that was cool back then. But they even said that a lot of the gameplay mechanics in that game influenced the mechanics that were made in Strikers. And that makes a lot of sense, because while a lot of people say this game is just Mario Soccer, I'd say it's actually a combination of soccer and hockey infused into one sport. There's the obvious soccer elements, like using a ball, the big nets, and of course, you're on grass, not ice. But from hockey, you got stuff like the boards all around the field, the amount of players on the field at one time more aligned with hockey, and of course, the full-out body check-in. Yeah, I don't watch soccer, but that play would be every penalty in the book. As a Canadian, I approve more Canadian companies putting hockey elements in their games. I love it. But that's enough about the development, because in November of 2005, this very game released. So let's hit this into the GameCube and see what this game's about. The game starts with a pretty neat intro cutscene of all the characters playing some soccer matches. It's nothing too crazy, but it's a cool showcase of the game's mechanics that you're gonna see. Once at the menu, you can quickly start a match here, and then you'll see how the game plays. Like many Mario sports titles, this game takes a sport and simplifies the gameplay to make it easy to play. So why don't we go over some of the mechanics of this game first. Basically, press A to pass and B to shoot. Hold B to charge up and shoot stronger shots. A charged shot will also curve the ball, allowing you to get it past the goalie more often. That's the gameplay on the surface, but then there's more advanced actions to perform, like you can hold L to do lobbed shots and lobbed passes. These are used to pass over the other team's players to avoid having your pass intercepted, but are slower. The R trigger is your run button, and it's actually pretty realistic how these characters run with the ball, even though in that interview before they said they opted for an overall less realistic style for the game. See, in soccer, players will slightly kick the ball ahead of themselves over and over when they are running with the ball. And this is the same case in Strikers, but because of this, you can't actually shoot or pass in between these little kicks. So for example, now I can pass or shoot, now I can't do anything in this time, and now I can pass and shoot again. This makes it more strategic as to when you want to run, since there'll be a bit of a delay when you're performing your next action. While it's not long, it's still enough time for the other team to take the ball away from you. Okay, and then the other options you have in this game are deking, body checks, slide tackling, and using items. The slide tackles and body checking are two different ways to get the ball from your opponent, but have a few differences. The body checks have a further range and stun the opponent for more time, but you don't immediately get the ball after using it. You then have to walk to it. However, slide tackling doesn't have the range, but you immediately have ball possession. Then to counter these two options, as a player who has the ball, you can do this quick little move that shifts your position slightly to throw off your opponents. It basically acts as a dodge against a tackle and body checking. This actually creates an interesting dynamic in reading your opponent, since you should wait a little bit before tackling the guy if you think he's gonna dodge first, or just go in for a quick tackle if he assumes that you are gonna wait. So because this is a Mario sports game, you gotta have some over-the-top elements to make it feel like not just another sports game. And besides just the brutality of the hitting in this game, we also have the inclusion of regular Mario items. It's just like Mario Kart, except I think the way the items are distributed to each team is pretty clever. See, because there is hitting and no penalties, if there wasn't some restriction, the game would just turn into a slugfest where everyone just goes for hits. So while you still can hit any player you want, if you hit someone without the ball, then the other team will be awarded an item. Another way to get them is also by shooting a hard shot at the goalie as well. And these items are pretty powerful in the game too. You can chuck bombs at your opponents, freeze enemy players, or even just summon a chain chomp to wreak havoc on the whole field. In most cases, it's a free turnover, but it also adds to the chaos of Mario sports games. And speaking of wreaking havoc on the whole field, Bowser will occasionally jump down to do exactly that. It's a weird kind of stage hazard here that honestly doesn't really add too much, but at least there's the option to turn it off. Then the last aspect of this game is the super strikes. Only the captains can perform this, and this is one aspect that, okay, it's just kinda alright. When these captains have a fully charged shot, a meter will appear and you have to stop the bar as closest to the inner green bar as possible for a higher chance of a goal. It then does this flashing matrix thing, and if you score, it counts as 2 goals, for some reason. Even though it's my least favorite element in the game, the rest of the gameplay is just so solid and fun. You need to strategize, make plays, and look for open players on your team to pass to. And when you make that perfect cross goalie pass and the time went to slow motion, it felt super awesome to score a hype goal like that. Plus, as I alluded to before, this game is a lot more brutal than, well, regular soccer, but also just a lot more than any other Mario game too. Just look at the characters when you start a match. Look how angry they are to play. Mario, that's your brother, man. Obviously the hitting is brutal too, but then they took it a step further by having electric fences to get knocked into, and then took it a step further by having all these friendly Mario characters scream in pain as they get shocked. What were they thinking? I mean, I'm glad they were thinking like this. Please continue to think like this. This is cool, but this is so much more hardcore than the Mario we've known to be. I don't even know how Nintendo approved this. There is one unlockable character, and that's the Super Team, which is basically just a bunch of weird robots you can play as. And they are pretty cool. There's such an odd and mysterious inclusion in the game. They make weird robotic sounds on the field, and even their goalie is now this weird looking robot critter. Huh. However, they play the same as all the other characters. The only difference being is that every character can use the Super Strike, not just the captain. And that's about it. It was more modest, I guess, with the crazy and wacky new mechanics that were usually found in Mario sports games at the time, but certainly fun in its own right, just not as over the top as other titles. And that's where this game comes into play, Mario Strikers Charged. A game released in May of 2007, less than 2 years after the first game. Now this was the game that made this entire series so beloved. It took the foundation that was created in Strikers and just allowed it to reach its full potential now. So why don't we pop this in and see what changes were made. There is another intro cutscene here again, but now the stakes are amplified. Everyone is playing soccer in it, but they're in crazy new arenas using crazy new moves. Things are insane. It's a pretty great visual spectacle that really hypes you up to play the game. Speaking of which, let's see how this game plays now. The controls are fairly similar to the last game, but with a few improvements. These were generally done to simplify the controls to make the game even more intuitive. Obviously, the game is on the Wii now, so the buttons had to be reworked to fit the Wii remote. The run button was removed, since now every character has a different speed, and only one speed at that. I do like this change because now the strategy comes from what player plays what position, rather than when to use your run button. And now the hitting is done by shaking the Wii remote rather than a button. And this is another great change for the controls. On the GameCube, there was a bit of muscle memory required for which of these two similar buttons was body checking and which was the item button. It's just more intuitive now to have the button be associated with the item and the body checks with the motion controls. And then, I don't know, it's just really satisfying when smacking your hand translates to actually decking a player in the game. So yeah, write down this moment, guys, because I'm actually praising motion controls. But let's talk about some of the new gameplay mechanics in this entry as well, because one big change in this game is how the soccer ball works. I know, this is a giant tennis ball, but I didn't have any soccer balls, okay? Who cares? We're doing a video on Mario Soccer. It's not like we're doing FIFA. So there's like a meter attached to the soccer ball now because it will continue to glow whenever a player passes or charges up their shot. And once it's at max glowiness, your shots become a lot more powerful. This mechanic is necessary to use in order to score in this game. Uncharged shots are way harder to score with. This is a great improvement in this game as it encourages team play by strategizing how you want to move the ball. With this, the game moves even faster too, since when the ball is fully charged up and shot, there's a frantic rush to get the rebound quickly to keep using the ball in this state. And this makes it so there's a really steady momentum that is kept in each match. Also, there is an interesting risk factor, since if you've charged up the ball, you really don't want to turn it over because the other team could then use that charged ball against you. Overall, this mechanic speeds up the game even more by encouraging players to keep the ball in constant motion and not just hang on to it. And also guys, if you're enjoying this kind of long retrospective video so far, then like the video to let me know you want to see more of this style. Thanks. But then why don't we look at the changes to the characters as well now, because yet again, this is another big improvement. See, in the original Strikers, all the characters just seemed like reskins of one another. They could have had slightly different properties, but I'm honestly not sure. They all feel the same to play. But now, in Strikers Charged, each character has completely different moves and abilities from all the others. This makes every character totally unique now. I'm serious, this is like the Super Smash Bros. Of Mario Soccer with how different they all play out. Basically, okay, here's how the characters work now. Each character has a different spread of their 4 basic stats. Movement, which is how fast your character moves around, since they got rid of the run button in this game. Shooting, which is how hard and fast your character's shots go. Passing, which is how fast the ball goes when you pass between your players. And defense. This one is basically how far their tackles and slide tackles go. In other words, how easy is it for them to get the ball from the other player. So moving and shooting will always be opposite for all the players to balance out their attributes. For example, big players like Bowser have a really good shot but are super slow to move around. And then the opposite of that would be a small guy like Diddy Kong who can move around fast but has this puny little love tap of a shot. Then you have more balanced characters like Mario and Luigi that have a bit of both. These attributes all apply to the sidekicks as well. And now you can select a different sidekick for each position, making it really strategic to build your team now. Like, a lot of the fun in this game is just team building and trying out different strategies through different play styles. And this makes the game super replayable with so many different combinations. I literally had a blast just trying to use this team of Waluigi and 3 Boos as my sidekicks, as I just relied on pure speed and using my dodges to deke out goalies to score. And on top of all these attributes, each player has a unique way of dodging too, and most of the time they all relate to the characters themselves. Like Boo literally has the best dodge in the game, being able to go invisible for a short second cause he's a ghost. Or there's Peach that literally flips over players as she carries the ball. However, when it comes to the more slower characters, it wouldn't really make sense to be as nimble as the fast characters, so instead of a dodge, they all have a counter attack of sorts. This means that they're the only type of players that can attack the other players when they're the ones carrying the ball. Donkey Kong can pound his chest to knock other players away, the Hammer Bros will literally slam down a giant hammer, or Wario will do a that on the ground. This simple feature creates yet again another layer of strategy and reading your opponents in this game, because now you can't just pick off the ball easily from the slow players, so maybe you want to wait a bit in order for them to use their attack, which will leave them open after using it. There are some similar dodges in some of the different captains, but this is balanced out by having each captain with their own unique item. Okay, I guess I'll talk about the items in this game now, because they pretty well work in the same way as the previous game. You know, by acting as a penalty for hitting someone without the ball, or acting as a reward for shooting a hard shot. In fact, I don't think there is any different items from the last game, except for, of course, the captain-specific items, which I already said. So each captain can get a pretty powerful weapon that relates to their character. Think of it as those character items in Mario Kart Double Dash, same concept. Bowser breathes fire, Wario farts, because of course he does, Petey vomits out this muddy goop like in Mario Sunshine, and Waluigi makes a wall out of vines because his name is Waluigi. Yeah, they really made a character's unique move based off a pun. But really, these are just a way to clear out as many players as possible so you have a chance to use your Super Strike. Well, they're actually called Mega Strikes now, and this is something that is also changed in this game. Yup, they're back, but very different now. They still have that meter from before, but now you first stop the meter on how many balls you want to shoot, and then you have to time it to hit the orange bar, which gives the goalies less time to block your shots. And you can actually shoot multiple balls at once, with a maximum of 6 balls to score a max of 6 goals. Assuming the other goalie sucks, that is. Because the other player plays as the goalie briefly to block the shots by just pointing to the balls using the Wii remote. This part, once again, was just alright in this game. I think it's honestly just the product of it being an early Wii game, so they just shoehorned in some gimmicky motion controls by clicking on the balls. It's kinda cool how it changes up the pace in the game, but I will say though, I really like the visuals of these Mega Strikes. Each character has a totally unique look during this animation that all look freaking awesome if I'm gonna be honest. Plus, it gives each of the characters so much charm and personality to them, and don't you worry, I will get into that topic a lot more later in this video. The sidekicks as well in this game have these like mini super shots to use too. These, on the other hand, I thought were handled super well and were a great new feature in this game. These moves all remain in the game's real time, and more of a focus on stunning the goalie first to allow another shot for an easy goal. Plus, they all turn the ball into some weird massive object. Also, these are all references to the sidekicks themselves in most cases. Things like how Koopa Troopa launches a giant Koopa shell, or even Birdo shoots a giant egg out of her snout, referencing her appearance in Mario 2. That's pretty cool. These are yet again something that makes all the characters feel unique from one another, and makes it more interesting to play since everyone has a special kind of shot to some degree. And one last thing about the character traits before we move on is that even with all these differences, some characters also had totally different moves just because it fit the character better. I think a notable example is how Yoshi doesn't have a tackle, but rather just sticks out his tongue to hit faraway opponents. This is a completely unique trait that no one else has. Like seriously, these characters almost feel like the Smash roster with the amount of differences here. But how about the new soccer fields in this game? You know, the thing that's actually right behind me right now. Well, much like the character roster, this is yet again another big improvement in the game. In the original, there was only one style of field, and you never interacted with the environment in a unique way. All the other fields were merely just different skins to change the backdrops and atmosphere of each location. This is where Striker's Charge shines, because now pretty well every field plays differently from each other. There's this sand field where you'll move slower if you're at the edges of this place since you're running through the sand. Plus there's thwomps that block your shots or smoosh players. Thunder Island is on top of this cliff and has no sides to it, so the players can get hit off the entire field, in which they'll stay out of the game for a decent amount of time before flying back. Then probably the most unique stadium is Crystal Canyon. Besides just looking really awesome, this map will randomly melt 1 or 2 players on each team at the very start of the match and after every goal is scored. And those players will stay out of play until another goal is scored after that. So you get some unique 3-on-3 and 2-on-2 matches here. This game still does have a few classic maps with no hazards, but as a little bonus, they also threw in every single field from the first game too, so you'll have plenty of variety even if you don't want the field hazards. Okay, the game has great mechanics and it is super fun to play and master, but there is still one more thing that is totally unique to this game that I really haven't seen in any other Mario sports game even since, and that is the game's style and personality. See, in all the other games, all these Mario characters were either one-dimensional or had no personality at all. And you know what, that was fine, it works for those games, but damn, did this game ever go in a different direction, and damn, am I ever glad that it did. All the characters retain their personalities from the main games, but are heavily exaggerated in this game. And in many cases, also have like a new persona attached to them that meshes super well. This breathes a whole new life into these characters while still not losing who they are. Like Peach, for example, she ain't just no, oh look at me, I'm a princess, tee-hee. But now she's more like a princess, a diva, you know, a celebrity who's spoiled. When she loses, she blames all of her teammates, and when she scores, it's all about posing for the cameras, getting those good angles. Plus her special move is literally someone taking pictures of her. For Bowser Jr., they fully embrace what this guy is. Just the kid. When he gets scored against, he throws a little tantrum and even goes after the cameras. And his special item is just high-pitched screaming, much like kids do. Then Yoshi is portrayed more like a pet here because I guess he was like Mario's pet in Super Mario World. He chases his tail, does tricks on the ball, and even has this cute little voice now. Plus, each character has a different theme song that not only adds to their established persona, but they're all influenced from different genres of music from different areas across the world. Honestly, I think this is a reference to the World Cup and just how popular soccer is across the entire world. So a lot of the characters, in many cases, become a representation of a certain country. Wario has this like polka theme, which sounds like a German song to me. Luigi has this like Spanish, Italian, or maybe even Latin sounding music going on. And then Diddy has this like classic Indian sounding music. This could honestly even be a reference to Taj, the Indian blue elephant genie from Diddy Kong Racing, who is also the host of Diddy Kong Racing, but that's just speculation. But some of the other characters' songs have subtle references from their games too. Bowser Jr. has this like surfer rock music going on, which makes sense when you realize his first appearance was in Mario Sunshine. You know, the game all about beaches, vacations, and islands. And to me, Shy Guy's theme sounds very mysterious, like he's a detective or something. And this relates to how his face is a total mystery. Honestly, I could do a whole video just about what I think all these different songs are references to, but I think for now I'll leave it at just that. Oh yeah, but I also gotta mention, Dry Bones is a straight up hip hop DJ with how fire his beats are. And also, I love how they kept the roughness, the grit that was established in the first Mario Strikers. Everyone is once again pissed like before. And once again, this game is a lot more like hockey than it first leads on. The electric fences are back, all the items launch players and pieces of the field all over the map. Plus, some of the attacks that the players use seem a lot more brutal here. The body checks go into this really cool slow motion effect when it's a big hit. And look at the Hammer Bros, they can impale you with this giant hammer. It's actually quite insane the amount of ways your players can get brutally injured from all the hitting, items, special items, and other craziness that goes on. And like man, the team captains here take the game seriously. A lot of the animations that play when scored on show how angry these people can get. Luigi's eye is twitching over here, Daisy's teammates are literally cowering in fear of her, and Bowser is straight up burning everybody, with guys even stop, drop, and rolling in the background. Brutal, man. They made this game even a bit more raunchy than the last one too. Just look at the rating, it increased from an E from the last game to an E10+ in this game. That's probably the most mature a Mario game will ever rate. They kept the Waluigi, well, crotch taunt, I guess. Okay, you come up with a better name for it. But then Daisy comes along and is like,
yeah.
Daisy, geez, what happened to the cute little princess from Mario? Kids are watching here. All these elements are super unique to the Mario Strikers series, making it feel like these games are actually in a different parallel Mario universe, separate from the main Mario games. It's really cool and really well done. While the first Strikers game was good, this one overall just felt more refined and polished than the first one, and it seemed to go a lot more all out with its style. This game feels more satisfying to play. You felt super powerful when shooting the ball as it's glowing, and all the hits felt really epic to land. Plus, sneaking out the goalies with the faster characters was really fun to do. This game honestly has something for everyone. Casual play is fun, but if you master your skills in the game, it can get really fast and competitive. There's also a lot of strategy required to make plays, so the gameplay never becomes mindless. And all the great gameplay combined with the totally unique style only seen in these games, well, I think you can see why fans loved these games back in the day. And that is what made Mario Strikers so amazing. Hey, if you're new here, then consider subscribing because literally all I do is talk about Mario and Nintendo games, both new and retro. Okay, sweet. Take care, everybody.